Tae-hyun pushed his body forward through the thick snow. The blizzard was stronger now, and the wind cut his face like sharp blades. He had left his village 3 days ago to gather rare mountain herbs from the high peaks. The herbs grew only in winter, and he needed them for the sick people in Silverbrook. His medical supplies were running low, and many villagers were suffering from cold fever. He wrapped his thick wool coat around himself tighter, but the cold still found its way inside. His fingers were numb, and his feet felt like heavy blocks of ice. The mountain pass called the Narrows was the fastest way back to his village. Tae-hyun knew the path well because he had walked it many times before. But today was different. The snow was falling so thick that he could barely see the rocks in front of him. The wind pushed him backward, making each step harder than the last. He almost turned back twice, but he thought about old Hae-won coughing in her bed and the children shivering in their homes. He had to keep going. As Tae-hyun walked deeper into the pass, something caught his eye. It was red. Red against the white snow stood out like blood on fresh cloth. He moved closer, and his heart started beating faster. It was not just a rock or a strange plant. There was a person lying beneath the rocks. Tae-hyun rushed forward as fast as the snow would allow him to move. What he found made him stop in shock. A woman was lying there, half buried under the white snow and broken rocks. She was wearing something like clothes, but they were torn and damaged. Her long dark hair was frozen to her skin with ice and something else, something that caught the light in a strange golden color. There was blood around her, but it was not the normal red of human blood. It had the same golden shine as what was in her hair. The woman's body was very still. Tae-hyun could not tell if she was alive or dead. He quickly put his hand near her face to check if she was breathing. For a terrible moment, he felt nothing. Then, very faintly, he felt warm breath against his frozen fingers. She was alive, but barely. Tae-hyun did not stop to think about what she was or where she came from. His healer's mind took over. He examined her body carefully. Her wounds were deep and strange. Long cuts ran across her shoulders and sides, as if something with terrible claws had attacked her. Some of the wounds looked old, but they had not healed well. Infection might have set in. Her skin was cold like death, but it was not gray yet. She still had time. He made a quick choice. Leaving her here meant death. Taking her back meant risk for himself and his village. But Tae-hyun had become a healer because he could not turn away from suffering. He had learned early in his life that some things were more important than safety. Tae-hyun removed his outer coat and wrapped it around the woman. Then, using all his strength, he lifted her body. She was lighter than he expected, as if her bones were hollow like a bird's. He held her close to his chest to share his body heat, and began the painful walk back down the mountain. Each step was hard. The snow seemed to pull at his feet. The woman's weight pressed down on him, but he did not stop. His mind focused on one simple thing: reach the village, reach home, keep her alive. The journey back took him much longer than the journey up. It was almost dark when Tae-hyun saw the lights of Silverbrook below him. He was exhausted. His legs shook with each step, but he made it. He reached his small stone house at the edge of the village, the place where people came when they were sick or hurt. Inside, Tae-hyun laid the woman near the warm fire. He had a large fireplace that burned constantly during winter, and the heat from it filled the whole room. He worked quickly, removing her torn clothing and examining her wounds properly. What he saw frightened him a little. The wounds were like nothing he had ever treated before. They were very deep, with edges that did not look like normal cuts. Whatever had hurt her was far larger and more powerful than a normal weapon. But Tae-hyun was a good healer. He had training and skill. He cleaned her wounds carefully with water and special herbs that fought infection. He made medicine from roots and plants he had grown himself. He wrapped her in clean cloth and blankets. Then he waited. For the first day, the woman did not wake up. She lay very still, and Tae-hyun worried she might die. For the second day, she developed a high fever. Her skin became hot to touch, and she began to talk in a language that Tae-hyun did not understand. The sounds she made were strange and old-sounding, like words from a very ancient time. Sometimes her voice was strong and powerful. Sometimes it was soft and sad. The fever made her body shake, and Tae-hyun stayed beside her through the night, giving her water and cool cloths for her burning head. By the third day, the fever started to lower. Her body began to heal in a way that surprised Tae-hyun. Most people healed slowly, day after day. But this woman was different. Each day, the deep wounds looked better. The infection that should have killed her began to fade away. The golden substance in her hair seemed to have healing power. Where it touched her skin, the damage healed faster. During the next 2 weeks, the woman remained unconscious, but her body grew stronger. The cuts across her shoulders started to close. Color returned to her pale face. Her breathing became deeper and steadier. Tae-hyun tended to her carefully. He gave her special soups to drink through her sleeping hours. He changed her bandages and applied his best healing medicines. He sat beside her at night and wondered who she was and how she came to be so badly hurt. Tae-hyun did not tell anyone about her. The village would have many questions, and he did not have answers to give. The elders always warned against helping strangers. They said unknown people brought unknown dangers. But Tae-hyun had learned to trust his own heart more than the village's fears. By the end of the 3rd week, Tae-hyun could see that she was becoming healthy. The worst danger had passed. She would live. But what would happen when she woke up? Who was this mysterious woman with the golden marks and the strange ancient language? Tae-hyun did not know. He only knew that she had come to his door in need, and he could not turn her away. The sun was coming through the window of Tae-hyun's house when something changed. The woman's fingers moved, just a small movement, but Tae-hyun saw it. He had been sitting beside her bed for many hours, reading old books and watching her sleep. Now he put his book down and leaned forward. Her eyes were still closed, but her face did not look like a sleeping person's face anymore. It looked like someone was coming back from very far away. Then her eyes opened. They were the color of storm clouds with pieces of silver light inside them. Those eyes looked around the room slowly, trying to understand where they were. They looked at the fire, at the books on the shelves, at the window showing the white mountains outside. Then the eyes found Tae-hyun, and for a moment there was fear in them. Deep, ancient fear. Tae-hyun did not move. He stayed very still because he understood that the woman was afraid. He kept his hands where she could see them. He made his voice soft and calm when he spoke. "You are safe," he said. "You were hurt. I found you in the mountain pass. You have been here for 3 weeks while you healed." The woman did not answer. Her eyes studied his face like she was trying to read something written there. Her breath came fast and shallow. Tae-hyun could see her hands shaking a little under the blanket. "Do you want some water?" he asked. "You have not had anything to drink since you woke up." Slowly, the woman nodded. Her movements were weak, like someone learning to move for the first time. Tae-hyun brought water from the pitcher by the fire. He helped her sit up a little, supporting her back with pillows. She drank the water greedily, and when she finished, she looked back at him. "Where?" Her voice was very rough, like it had not been used in many years. "Where am I?" "In the village of Silverbrook, in my house. My name is Tae-hyun. I am a healer." The woman closed her eyes for a moment, like she was trying to understand something very difficult. "I am A-jin," she said finally. I do not remember how I came to be in the mountain. I do not remember." She stopped talking. Her eyes opened wide, and she looked down at her body under the blanket. Her shoulders were bandaged. Tae-hyun could see fear again in her face. Not the fear of a confused person, but the fear of someone remembering something bad. "Your wounds are healing well," Tae-hyun said gently. "You were hurt very badly, but you are strong. You will be okay." A-jin did not look at him. She stared at her hands like she was seeing them for the first time. "What happened to me?" she asked. I remember pain. I remember fire. I remember—" Her words stopped. She put her hand on her head like it was hurting. Tae-hyun saw sweat form on her forehead. He thought she might be getting sick again. But then she took a deep breath and looked at him. "Thank you," she said, "for saving me." Over the next few weeks, A-jin grew stronger each day. She began to move around the house. First, she sat by the fire. Then she stood and walked slowly from one room to another. Tae-hyun watched as her body healed faster than any human body he had ever seen. The deep wounds that should have left terrible scars began to fade. Within 2 weeks, they were almost invisible. But something else was happening to A-jin that worried Tae-hyun more than her physical wounds. She seemed to be struggling with her own mind. Sometimes she would look at the window for an hour without moving. Sometimes she would touch things in the house like she was trying to understand what they were. She asked strange questions about the world. How much time had passed since she got hurt? What year was it? Who ruled the kingdoms now? Tae-hyun taught her the language of the current time, though she picked it up so fast it seemed impossible. New words that should have taken her days to learn, she spoke correctly after hearing them just once. It was like the language was already in her head somewhere, and she was just remembering it instead of learning it. One night, as they sat by the fire eating soup, Tae-hyun asked her about her memories. "Do you remember your family? Where you are from?" A-jin put down her bowl and stared into the fire. Her storm-gray eyes looked very far away. "I remember big things," she said slowly. "I remember places that do not exist anymore. I remember buildings so tall they touched the clouds. I remember power." She paused. "But I do not remember how I came to be in the mountain. I do not remember who hurt me or why." "The dreams you had while you were sick," Tae-hyun said. "You spoke many times. Do you remember anything from those dreams?" A-jin's hands shook a little. "I remember something old," she said. "Something very old. But it cannot be real memory. It must be from dreams. It must be." But the way she said it, Tae-hyun could tell she did not believe her own words. "What was the dream about?" he asked. A-jin looked at him. In her eyes, he saw something that made his heart beat faster. Something ancient and powerful looked out at him from inside this fragile woman's face. Then the moment passed, and it was just A-jin again. "I dreamed I was a queen," she said quietly. "A queen of a very old world. I dreamed I had power that could move mountains and burn cities. I dreamed that I ruled the sky." She paused. "But that is all it was. A dream from a sick mind." She turned back to her soup, but Tae-hyun saw her hands were shaking again. As the weeks passed, A-jin asked more questions. She wanted to know the history of the world. What kingdoms rose and fell? What happened to the great civilizations of the past? Tae-hyun brought her books from his small library. He read to her about ancient times. And each time he spoke about a kingdom that fell or a civilization that disappeared, A-jin's face would grow pale and distant. One day, Tae-hyun asked her directly, "Do you know anything about those old times? You speak as if you do." A-jin was silent for a long time. Outside, the snow had stopped, and spring was coming. The world was becoming green again. Finally, she answered, "I feel like I know them. Like I was there. But that is impossible, is it not? No one lives for hundreds of years. Taehyun did not answer. He was not sure what to say. Aejin looked at him with worried eyes. Do you think I am mad? Do you think my mind is broken from my sickness? No, Taehyun said. I think you remember things you do not fully understand yet. But we do not have to understand everything right now. You are alive. You are healing. That is enough. Aejin smiled at him for the first time, and it was like the sun coming out from behind clouds. Taehyun felt something warm inside his chest when he saw that smile. But even as he smiled back, he knew that there were secrets inside Aejin. Secrets that were slowly waking up from a very long sleep. Spring had fully arrived when the stranger came to Silverbrook. Her name was Hyuna, and she was a historian and scholar who traveled from village to village collecting stories and studying old texts. She carried bags full of books, old maps, and artifacts that she had found during her travels. The villagers welcomed her because she always brought news from far away and paid well for information about old times and forgotten places. Taehyun met Hyuna at the village market where she was trading with the merchant for food. He was there buying vegetables and herbs for Aejin, who was now almost fully recovered. Hyuna was a tall woman with intelligent eyes and quick movements. She looked at Taehyun with interest when the merchant told her that the young healer had brought in someone unusual from the mountains. What is unusual about her? Hyuna asked, turning from the merchant's stall to face Taehyun. Taehyun was not sure how to answer. He did not want to tell the village secrets, but Hyuna was looking at him with such direct curiosity that he found himself inviting her to his house. Maybe a scholar could help him understand what Aejin was. Maybe Hyuna would have answers. When Aejin saw Hyuna arrive at the house, she went very still. It was the same way she had looked when she first woke up in Taehyun's house. Hyuna, for her part, stared at Aejin like she had seen a ghost. You are remarkable, Hyuna said slowly. She walked around Aejin, studying her carefully. The way you move, your face, the color of your eyes. I have seen drawings like you. I do not understand, Aejin said, but her voice was nervous. Hyuna set down her bags and brought out several large books. She turned the pages carefully, searching for something. When she found it, she held up the book to Aejin. The drawing on the page showed a woman with storm-gray eyes and long, dark hair. She was wearing clothes from another time. But the face was unmistakably similar to Aejin. Where did you find this? Aejin asked. Her hands trembled as she looked at the drawing. In old texts from the study of the Seventh Age, Hyuna replied. This woman appears in many legends. She was a queen of that time, or so the stories say. Taehyun watched as Aejin's face grew pale. He moved closer to her, ready to catch her if she fell. Hyuna continued to show them more and more drawings from different ancient texts. Each one seemed to show the same woman, dressed in the clothes of different times, but with the same beautiful and powerful face. In some drawings, she wore a crown. In others, she sat on a throne. In still others, she stood above great cities. These are all legends, Hyuna explained, turning the pages. Stories that scholars like me try to understand. This woman appears in the history of at least 7 different kingdoms, all from times that are hundreds of years apart. But that would be impossible for a human. She would need to live for thousands of years. These are just stories, Aejin said quietly. Just pictures from old times. They mean nothing. But Taehyun could see that Aejin was lying. Her whole body was shaking. Sweat was forming on her forehead. Hyuna looked at her with new understanding in her eyes. You know something about these pictures, do you not? You recognize them? Before Aejin could answer, Hyuna opened another book. This one contained a single large drawing that covered almost a whole page. It showed a massive creature with scales that shone like jewels in the sun. The creature had great wings folded against its body and eyes that burned with ancient light. It was a dragon. The text beneath the drawing was old and hard to read, but Hyuna began to translate it. This is from the History of the Cataclysm. The text speaks of a terrible dragon that appeared 500 years ago. It attacked the kingdoms of the Seventh Age. It burned cities and killed many thousands of people. The dragon was powerful beyond measure. No army could defeat it. No magic could stop it. The kingdoms fell one after another. This dragon destroyed civilization itself. Tae-hyun looked at A-jin. She was staring at the drawing of the dragon with an expression he had never seen before. It was a look of deep pain and sadness and also something else, something like recognition. "What happened to the dragon?" A-jin asked, her voice very small and far away. Hyuna flipped through more pages. "The legends are unclear. Some say the dragon was killed by an ancient hero. Others say it flew away to the highest mountains and was never seen again. Some texts speak of a great battle where the dragon was wounded, but no one knows if it actually died or if it simply disappeared." The room was very quiet. Outside, birds were singing in the trees. The spring breeze was warm and full of life. But inside Tae-hyun's house, it felt like winter again. Over the next few days, Hyuna stayed in Silverbrook. She spent most of her time with A-jin and Tae-hyun, sharing her knowledge and studying A-jin carefully. She measured A-jin's height and the shape of her face. She sketched her likeness and compared it to the old drawings. She asked her many questions about what she remembered. A-jin told Hyun-ah that she had lost most of her memories. She could not explain how she came to be in the mountain pass. She could not explain the strange wounds on her body. But Hyun-ah was a smart woman, and she began to put the pieces together. One night, after A-jin had gone to sleep, Hyun-ah spoke to Tae-hyun in private. "You understand what she is, do you not?" the historian asked. Tae-hyun nodded slowly. "I think so, but I do not know how it is possible." "Look at the wounds on her shoulders," Hyun-ah said, "and look at this picture of the dragon's claws." She showed him a detailed drawing from one of her books. The shape of the marks matched exactly what Tae-hyun had seen when he first found A-jin. "A dragon's claws," Hyun-ah whispered. "Perhaps from another dragon, perhaps from something else that was hunting her." The Seventh Age texts speak of great creatures. Dragons were not the only ones. If one dragon fought another and lost, it would have been wounded. A wound from such a battle might take centuries to heal. "You think the dragon came here to sleep?" Tae-hyun asked. "To hide and heal?" "I think that is exactly what happened," Hyun-ah said. "I think the dragon was cast down, wounded deeply, and fled to the mountains. There, in snow and ice, it fell into a kind of magical sleep. 500 years of rest allowed its body to heal. But perhaps there was magic that also changed its form. Perhaps it became human so that it could hide from whoever was hunting it." Tae-hyun thought about this. It explained so much. It explained why A-jin's wounds were so strange. It explained why she healed so fast. It explained the golden substance in her hair and the strange ancient language she spoke when she had fever. But it did not explain why such a terrible creature could also be so kind. The dragon that destroyed civilizations should have been evil. The woman he had nursed back to health was not evil. She helped him with his healing work. She showed care for the sick people in the village. She smiled at children and taught them songs in a language none of them understood. Hyun-ah seemed to understand what Tae-hyun was thinking. "Perhaps," she said carefully, "when the dragon became human, it also became capable of being human. Perhaps the sleep and the change in form healed not just the wounds in the body, but also the darkness in the mind." It was a hope that Tae-hyun wanted to believe. But he also knew that they would have to be very careful. Because if A-Jin was truly the dragon of legend, and if she ever remembered her full power, everything could change. Silverbrook could be in terrible danger. And the world itself might not be safe. The fever came without warning. One day, A-Jin was healthy and strong, helping Tae-hyun in his healing house. The next day, she collapsed on the floor while drawing water from the well. Her body became so hot that Tae-hyun could feel the heat coming from her from far away. This fever was nothing like the fever that had come when she was healing from her wounds. This fever was different. This fever was something breaking open from deep inside her. Tae-hyun brought her to his bed and covered her with all the blankets he had. But A-Jin still shook with cold. Her skin turned a strange color, almost golden, and then dark again. Patterns appeared on her shoulders and arms like scales, beautiful and terrible, and then faded away. Her voice when she spoke was sometimes high like a woman and sometimes deep like something old and powerful. Hyuna came to help as soon as she heard. She brought cool water and herbs, but nothing seemed to work. A-Jin's body was fighting something that no healing herbs could fix. It was like her human body and something else inside her were fighting each other, and A-Jin was caught between them. Sometimes A-Jin spoke words in the ancient language. Her voice was so loud and full of power that Tae-hyun had to step back from the bed. She called out names of kingdoms that did not exist anymore. She spoke of war and burning and flying through the air with the wind beneath her. She sang songs in a language that made the fire in the fireplace jump and dance. Other times, A-Jin cried out in pain. Her hands gripped the blanket so hard that her fingers left holes in the cloth. Tae-hyun tried to comfort her, holding her hand and speaking soft words. But sometimes she did not seem to know who he was. Other times she looked at him with eyes that were not entirely human and said his name like she was trying to remember something important. During the second night of her fever, A-Jin's body changed in a way that frightened both Tae-hyun and Hyuna. Scales the size of coins appeared on her skin. They were beautiful, with colors like jewels that caught the light. Her fingernails grew sharp and long and became dark like metal. Her teeth seemed to grow longer. But then, after a few minutes, everything changed back again. The scales faded. The sharp nails became normal again. She was just A-Jin again, but with a body that was covered in sweat and shaking with the effort of holding her human form. Hyuna watched all of this with careful eyes. She took notes on pieces of paper, writing down everything she saw. She measured how long each change lasted. She studied the pattern of the scales. "It is like her body is remembering," Hyuna whispered to Tae-hyun when they stepped outside for fresh air. "She is becoming more dragon each moment. Soon she may not be able to stay human anymore." "How do we stop it?" Tae-hyun asked desperately. "I do not know if we can," Hyuna said. "This is transformation. This is what happens when a creature remembers what it truly is." On the third day of the fever, A-Jin woke up. Her eyes were clearer than they had been, but they were also different. They were still storm gray, but now they had more silver in them, and the silver moved like liquid lightning. "I remember," A-Jin said, her voice still not quite human. "I remember everything." Tae-hyun sat beside her and took her hand. Her hand was hot and felt strange, like there was power running through her skin. "What do you remember?" he asked gently. A-Jin closed her eyes. When she spoke, her words came slowly, like she was speaking about a dream that was becoming more real each moment. "I was a queen," she said. "A queen of the 7th age. I ruled over 3 kingdoms and the sky itself. I had power that was greater than human power. I could make the earth shake. I could call lightning from the clouds. I could fly higher than the birds. I was not human. I was a dragon. And I was the greatest dragon of my time." She opened her eyes and looked at Tae-hyun. "I was also very young. In my mind, I mean. I had lived for thousands of years, but I was still young in my thinking. I did not understand the weight of my own power. I was like a child with the strength of a god. What happened? Taehyun asked. I became cruel, Ajin said, and tears ran down her face. I did things that I thought were righteous, but they were terrible. I burned cities. I killed thousands of people. I told myself that I was doing it for good reasons, but the truth was that I liked the power. I liked making others afraid. I liked winning wars that were already won. I was mad, Taehyun, mad with power and youth and the belief that I would always be great. Her body shook with sobs. Other dragons came. They were older than me and wiser. They knew what I was doing was wrong. They tried to stop me, but I fought them. There was a great battle. I thought I would win. I thought I was stronger than all of them together. But I was wrong. Ajin lifted her shoulder, and Taehyun saw that the old scars were becoming visible again. They looked different now, like claw marks from something much larger and stronger than her. I was wounded, she said, badly. I was losing the battle, losing everything. So I ran. I flew to the highest mountains where I knew they could not follow. There I was able to do something that dragons can do when they are dying. I went to sleep. I entered a kind of death sleep that would last until my body healed. But you changed, Hyuna said from the doorway where she had been listening. You became human, Ajin nodded. Magic changed me. Perhaps it was my own magic trying to hide me. Perhaps it was the magic of the earth itself. I do not know. But I became human so that no one would know what I truly was. I was so broken, so filled with shame about what I had done, that I wanted to be something else, something small, something that was not powerful enough to hurt anyone. Taehyun understood now. The woman he had found in the snow, the woman he had loved and cared for, had come to him broken not just in body but in spirit. She had been running from herself, hiding from what she was. What will you do now? He asked. Now that you remember? Ajin looked at him for a long time. Her eyes were still changing, still showing the dragon beneath the human. But her voice was gentle when she spoke. I do not know, she said. I could become what I was again. The power is still in me. I can feel it in my blood. I could restore myself to what I once was and rule the world again. But I remember what that was like, and I know now that I do not want it. She took Taehyun's hand and held it against her face. 500 years ago, I was a god who did not know what her power meant. But these past months, with you, being human, I have learned something that no dragon's power ever taught me. I have learned what it means to care for someone. I have learned what it means to help someone and ask nothing in return. I have learned kindness. What will you do? Taehyun asked again. I will choose, Ajin said. I will choose to stay like this if you will have me. I will choose to be the woman I have become rather than the dragon I was. And if I must fight my own nature to do that, then I will fight it every day for the rest of my life. After the fever broke, Ajin was different. Her memories were clear now, filling her mind like water filling a cup. She knew her ancient names. She knew the kingdoms she had ruled. She knew the power that lived in her blood. She could feel the dragon waiting inside her human body, patient and strong, ready to be let out. But she also knew something else. She knew the weight of what that power had cost. She knew the faces of the people her fire had burned. She knew the sound of cities falling. And she knew beyond any doubt that she did not want to be that creature ever again. Taehyun watched her struggle with this knowledge. He saw it in the way her hands would sometimes shake with power she was trying to hold back. He saw it in the way she would look up at the sky like she was remembering what it felt like to fly. But he also saw something stronger in her. He saw her choosing every day to be human. One afternoon, Ajin asked Taehyun to walk with her to the mountain above the village. They climbed slowly, Ajin moving with an ease that showed her strength was back. The spring air was warm, and green was coming back to the world. When they reached the high place, they could see all of Silverbrook below them, the small houses with their smoke rising, the people moving in the streets, the children playing in the fields. I could go back, Ajin said quietly. I could leave this place. I could travel to the far kingdoms and take back the power I once had. No one would be able to stop me this time. I am older now. I am wiser. I would know how to use the power better. Why do you not? Taehyun asked. Ajin was quiet for a long time. Because I tried that once, she said finally. I tried to be great and powerful and important, and what it gave me was loneliness and fire, and the knowledge that I had destroyed so much. I thought that power would make me happy, but it only made me afraid of losing it, afraid of those who would challenge me, afraid of myself and what I might do. She pointed down at the village. Look at them. They have so little. A few houses, some fields. They do not have power, but they have something else. They have families. They have friends. They have days where nothing important happens, and they are happy just to have that. I never had that when I was a dragon. I never had the chance to be small enough to matter to just one person instead of ruling thousands. Do you want to stay here? Taehyun asked. In Silverbrook? Yes, Ajin said. Is that foolish? To give up everything for so little? Taehyun took her hand. Her hand was warm and human, not hot with dragon power. I do not think it is foolish, he said. I think it is brave. Ajin smiled at him. It was a smile that held sadness and peace at the same time. But I am afraid, she admitted. I am afraid that one day the power will be too strong. I am afraid that I will lose control. I am afraid that I will hurt someone again. How can I ask you to trust me when I do not trust myself? Because I have already seen the worst, Taehyun said. I have seen you when you were helpless and broken. I have seen you remember the terrible things you did. I have seen you choose to be good anyway. And I have learned that choice is harder than power. Choice is what makes someone truly strong. For the next months, life in Silverbrook continued. Yuna left to travel to other places, but she promised to keep Ajin's secret. She said she would write books about the legends of the dragons, but she would make sure that no one understood that one of them was alive and living quietly in a small mountain village. Ajin worked with Taehyun in his healing house. She had a gift for it that surprised everyone. The people she touched seemed to heal faster. They felt calmer. Sometimes they said they could feel warmth coming from her hands that made them feel better in ways they could not explain. She learned to cook in the kitchen of the small house. She grew a garden where she planted herbs and plants. Some of them grew in ways that seemed impossible for the cold mountain climate. But Taehyun knew this was because she was still a dragon, and dragons had power over the earth itself. She began to know the people of the village. She learned their names and their stories. There was Hai Wan, the old woman she had never met, but had coughed in her bed when Taehyun first found Ajin. There was Min-soo, the blacksmith's son who was shy and kind. There were children who called her teacher when she started to teach them about the old languages and old songs. Sometimes at night, Ajin would go out to the high places and let herself transform a little. Not fully into a dragon, but into something between. Her skin would show the scales. Her eyes would burn with dragon light. She would run through the mountains in this form, and for a few hours, she could feel what it was like to be powerful again. Then she would come back to the village and become human again. And she would be at peace. Taehyun never asked her to stop doing this. He understood that she needed it. He understood that keeping the dragon locked away forever would only make her suffer. so he let her be both. He let her be the woman he loved during the day, and he let her be the ancient dragon on certain nights. But he was careful, and every morning when she came back to him, he held her and told her that he was proud of her. He told her that she was strong, and slowly, day by day, Ajin began to believe that perhaps she could be both. She could be a dragon and be good. She could have power and choose to use it kindly. She could be ancient and terrible and also gentle and caring at the same time. The old Ajin, the dragon queen who had burned civilizations, was gone. But the dragon itself was not dead. It was simply resting, living a different kind of life. It was learning what it meant to belong to one person, one village, one small piece of the world. And it was discovering that this kind of love was a power that was greater than any kingdom it had ever ruled.